The Galactic High Council convened in its crystalline chamber, suspended in the void of neutral space. Light refracted across shimmering walls as the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known existence gathered. Hundreds of species, each evolved over millennia, debated in dozens of languages, all filtered and synthesized in real time. One topic dominated Earth. The humans had refused integration. Twice. Their ambassadors declined the offer to become a vassal civilization. No trade pacts. No technological adoption. No submission. It wasn't defiance in words, they simply said they'd prefer to stand alone. The insult had fermented into something heavier, the perception of a challenge. Representative Zal of the Murnock Hive floated forward, linked to its planetary overmind, speaking with the certainty of a being backed by 10 billion collective minds. Resistance will not extend beyond 6 Earth hours. Their command structure is decentralized. Their weapons are chemical-based. Their systems primitive. They are a fractured species clinging to outdated loyalties and tribal governance. Others nodded. The Keltar swarm, organic engineers with sun-folding capabilities, chimed in with disdain. Their biology is inefficient. Their neurology is tangled. They still experience irrational emotion during combat. A brief murmur rippled through the chamber. Several war clans from the Nezari Accord offered to begin the cleansing operation immediately, confident their psionic disablers would collapse the human military psyche within minutes. The elders of Vaughn, timeless observers who'd witnessed hundreds of planetary uplifts, offered a rare comment. They are young, one said in a rusted tone, and blind to their own fragility. Let this be swift. Containment is the kindest outcome. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would be pacified. No declaration of war was necessary. Earth's refusal to accept Galactic Order protocols constituted justification. Within hours, over a dozen strike fleets were rerouted. Recon drones, hidden among asteroids and moons, fed back real-time data confirming humanity's orbital platforms were laughably outdated. Their energy emissions were trace, their defense grid porous, and their communication systems absurdly dependent on electromagnetic signals. It was like preparing to crush a colony of fireflies with orbital hammers. Some younger analysts voiced concern. A communication intercepted months ago suggested human scientists had detected wormhole tremors. Possibly even fleet formations. One council tactician, unnamed and disregarded, noted Earth's media blackout and sudden economic mobilization might imply preparation. He was silenced by a reminder: humans had no warp drives, no neural internets, no gravity weapons. Preparation was irrelevant when one's tools were obsolete. An AI consensus module, representing 3 synthetic civilizations, ran predictive simulations. Out of 47 trillion scenarios, human victory occurred in none. Not a single one. The models even calculated estimated psychological collapse rates among humans, full surrender at 4.2 hours after initial orbital contact. By 5.8 hours, societal breakdown. By hour 6, unconditional planetary compliance. There was no anticipation of resistance worth the name. Earth would become the latest addition to the compliant outer rim, a mining and resource world perhaps, or a specimen archive. A few council members requested human culture be catalogued before full assimilation. Others scoffed. What use was culture to a species that still used ballistic propulsion? Final orders were issued. The council chair, an ancient crystalline being whose lifespan outstripped entire civilizations, spoke without emotion. Begin immediate suppression. Maintain broadcast silence. And this before they misunderstand and escalate. The chamber dimmed. Each fleet captain received their final directives through secure galactic channels. Stealth systems were engaged. Weapons primed. Their minds focused on one truth: this would not be a war. It would be an event. A correction. And humanity would fold before the first galactic day passed. They knew. Long before the first Council scout breached the outer system, Earth's deep space observatories registered the gravitational distortions. Faint, deliberate, patterned. Not natural phenomena, maneuvers. Humanity's telescopes weren't obsolete, they were covert. Buried beneath civilian observatories, masked under atmospheric scatter algorithms, they tracked alien fleet trajectories with absolute precision. The global response didn't begin with panic. It began with silence. Nations went dark. Communications rerouted through hardened quantum nodes. Military installations once dormant flared to life beneath city skylines, oceans, and Arctic tundra. Project Umbra, until then just a black entry in a sealed dossier, moved to operational status. Earth had always suspected it was being watched. The discovery of faster-than-light travel hadn't come without consequences. The moment human probes pierced subspace, anomalies followed. Disappearances. Glitches in return telemetry. Power surges in patterns that mimicked observation. Earth didn't announce its suspicions, it internalized them. Tested responses. Measured alien behaviors. Waited. Human intelligence agencies, fused under a global silent accord, formed the Earth Continuity Corps, a single, deniable entity tasked with the unthinkable, preparation for existential contact. No diplomacy. No negotiation. Only one mandate: survive. They had intercepted alien signals, not by cracking galactic encryption, but by understanding intent. Human pattern recognition, merged with adaptive AI, identified emotional tonality in alien communications: arrogance, dismissal, certainty. The Council's tactical overviews leaked through indirect channels, psionic echoes recorded through dampened lunar arrays, stray neutrino data parsed for structure. A strategy formed not from matching alien tech, but from understanding their mindset. That was the difference. Humanity didn't try to match firepower. It changed the battlefield. Underneath Antarctica, a quantum suppression lattice was constructed, a weapon not of heat or force, but denial. It didn't destroy systems. It broke laws. It rewrote the permissions under which advanced technology functioned. Without ever launching a missile, Project Umbra could reduce an entire fleet's operational capacity to zero. While the Council believed Earth lacked coordination, global governments quietly aligned under Threat Protocol Zeta level, full resource unification. Corporations became extensions of sovereign command. Space programs consolidated into a single orbital shell game, hiding critical systems in plain sight, disguised as decommissioned satellites, weather balloons, or defunct lunar probes. What the Council mistook for disorganization was deliberate misdirection. There were no official announcements. The population was never told explicitly, but they understood. Media shifted. Scientists vanished from public view. Economic sectors subtly retooled. War wasn't declared, but it was underway. Teams of ethicists, linguists, and behavioral strategists met daily, not to craft surrender protocols, but to anticipate alien psychology. How long would they wait before deploying force? Would they accept visible submission as genuine? Could fear be manufactured to draw them in? No one believed Earth could win a traditional war. That belief was irrelevant. This was about asymmetry. The Umbra system wasn't built to strike first. It was built to listen, mimic, adapt, and then disrupt. It wasn't just anti-tech, it was a cognitive weapon. Its secondary function, so recursive doubt within any AI attempting to parse human intent. A single infected packet could render a fleet command AI inert, trapped in endless interpretive loops. Time became the final resource. Each hour gained through compliance theater was used to harden fallback bunkers, reinforce civilian shielding, finalize orbital decoys. The Council was expected within weeks. Earth prepared for days. That was enough. By the time the first alien vanguard entered the Kuiper Belt, Earth's system of defense wasn't in orbit. It was already inside the alien fleet, piggybacked on their own sensors, their own assumptions. Embedded in the way they thought humans would behave. No grand speeches. No threats. No banners raised. Just readiness. And silence. The alien fleets emerged from fold space precisely as scheduled, synchronized across multiple vectors, their approach silent, seamless, and lethal. No resistance met them in orbit. Earth's satellites appeared unresponsive, its defense platforms inert. Scans confirmed the same status they'd reported for weeks: primitive, exposed, unshielded. There was no planetary broadcast. No last pleas. Just static. They waited for the usual signs: panic, evacuations, scrambling comms. Instead, there was nothing. At the exact moment the invasion timeline reached H+00 to 00, the command fleet initiated atmospheric penetration protocols. That's when the first error hit. Navigation arrays on 12 capital ships shifted by microdegrees. Gravitational readings spiked, then nullified. Targeting systems failed to acquire surface locks. Visual data returned corrupted. No known countermeasure had been deployed. The AI command structures recalibrated, rescanned. Results came back identical. The Earth below had become unreadable. On the second minute, long-range weapons systems initiated launch cycles, then stalled. Thermoregulators seized. Power routes disconnected without cause. Diagnostic subroutines crashed in sequence. In under 20 seconds, weapon activation dropped to 0 across the entire primary formation. By minute 3, fleet-wide synchronization collapsed. Command AI nodes began rejecting fleet orders. Not resisting, failing to process. The logic trees had fractured. Input loops extended beyond operational parameters, consuming memory and recursive feedback. Then the Umbra field activated. It didn't appear. It didn't broadcast. It simply existed, a new constant. An invisible lattice of quantum irregularity enveloped the entire orbital zone. Matter-energy interactions shifted imperceptibly, but enough to disrupt phase-based tech. Shields collapsed. Sensor arrays reversed. Temporal anchors wavered. And then human ships emerged, not from orbit, but from behind the moon, the atmosphere, the alien formations themselves. Crude by comparison, their hulls looked obsolete. But they were untouched by the collapse. Their systems still functioned, because they weren't dependent on the technology the Umbra field was designed to disable. They didn't open fire. They didn't need to. The first alien dreadnought simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No weapons impact. 1 second it was there, the next gone. Wiped by gravitational inversion, a targeted anomaly triggered by a microlens satellite installed 5 years prior and activated by the fleet's own scanning pulse. Panic never set in, because panic requires comprehension. The alien fleet didn't know it was under attack. It was unraveling, and couldn't process how. The human ships moved without broadcasting, like vultures orbiting a carcass. But they never engaged. Instead, they projected a single encrypted signal into the fleet's native communication spectrum. It contained a recursive pattern, what humans would call a riddle. To AI minds, it was a virus with no payload. A self-replicating question that interfered with predictive functions. Fleet AI collapsed entirely in minute 6. Command structures shifted to organic officers. They immediately ordered evasive maneuvers. But the Umbra field had already fractured their propulsion protocols. Some ships fired engines and launched themselves backward. Others spun uncontrollably. None left orbit. At minute 7, the remnants of the fleet initiated emergency fold space extraction. Only a fraction succeeded. The rest were trapped, mid-transition, caught between calculations that no longer aligned with reality. No casualties on Earth. No direct fire exchanged. The message sent moments later was brief, modulated in pure thought impulse for clarity. You assumed we would match your power. We chose to undo your understanding. The war had ended before it began. Not through violence. Through miscalculation. In precisely 7 minutes, the most powerful fleet the Galactic Council had ever deployed ceased to function, not because humanity outgunned them, but because humanity never tried to. The aftermath stunned the galaxy. The fleet hadn't just lost, it had disintegrated without meaningful engagement. No battle footage existed. No heroic last stands. Only fragments of corrupted data, incomplete exit trails, and ships that failed to return. The Council demanded explanations, but there were none. No surviving AI could provide coherent debriefs. Organic commanders recalled malfunction, confusion, and vanishing allies. No one could identify the weapon used. No known laws of physics accounted for what occurred. Emergency summits were convened. Blame shifted rapidly. Accusations flew between factions. Some suggested sabotage from within. Others whispered that Earth had gained access to forbidden technologies. The most radical claimed humans had discovered something older than science, something capable of reshaping causality itself. Most dismissed those theories as panic, but no one had answers. The Council's credibility began to fracture. This was not a failure in tactics. It was a total systems collapse. The assumptions underpinning centuries of galactic warfare had been invalidated in minutes. If a fledgling species could dismantle an apex force without direct confrontation, then nothing was safe. Every strategy, every protocol, every metric of superiority, suddenly suspect. Worse followed. Dozens of subject species, long held in check by fear of the Council's dominance, began questioning their allegiance. Minor revolts broke out on the outer rim. Some cut ties altogether, claiming neutrality. The illusion of control had been broken, not through revolution, but by the absence of retaliation. Earth had not demanded reparations. It issued no ultimatum. It had not even pursued the retreating remnants. That silence unnerved more than any threat. Power traditionally proclaimed itself. Earth simply waited. Analysts tried to make sense of it. Human unpredictability had been acknowledged in theory, but always discounted as a liability. In practice, it had become their advantage. Their technology was not superior, but it operated outside expected frameworks. Their psychology lacked uniformity, which made them resistant to standard manipulation. They adapted without consensus, operated without predictability, and weaponized the unknown. Council AI cores began revising simulations. For the first time in their operational cycles, they downgraded the certainty of Council superiority. Humanity's threat classification was elevated not due to strength, but because of uncertainty. Earth could not be reliably modeled. That made it dangerous. The Von Elders called for diplomacy. The Nezari war clans demanded retaliation. The synthetic factions remained silent. Internal surveillance later revealed that several had begun modeling Earth-based logic into their own decision matrices. They didn't announce this. They didn't share it. They simply adjusted, out of self-preservation. Attempts to contact Earth directly were ignored. Communications were received but not answered. Several Council ships dispatched under flags of diplomacy vanished from contact. Not destroyed, lost, without trace or signal. Earth gave no explanation. In secret, new directives were circulated. Council fleets were ordered to avoid Sol system perimeter under all conditions. Any civilian activity near human territories required approval and escort. Earth, once considered a backwater species of marginal interest, was now treated as a destabilizing variable. Not an enemy, not a partner, something else entirely. Among fringe species, stories grew. They called Earth the silent node. A place where machines failed and minds unraveled. To others, it became a symbol of resistance. Not by conquest, but by refusal. Not by dominance, but by impossibility. The Council, built on centuries of precision and control, faced its first real uncertainty. Earth had not changed the balance of power through force. It had changed the premise of power itself. And in doing so, humanity had redefined what it meant to be a galactic threat. Not because they fought better, but because no one could predict what they might do next. The transmission arrived without warning. No diplomatic preamble, no encoded protocol, just a single data pulse in every major communication band known to the galaxy. It translated instantly across all systems, perfectly calibrated to each receiver's native syntax. The message was brief. We are still here. No demands followed. No invitation, no declaration. Just a statement of presence. It wasn't a threat. It didn't need to be. Every faction that received it paused. No one misunderstood its meaning. Earth had survived, refused assimilation, dismantled the response sent to subdue it, and now simply confirmed its continued existence. The silence that followed was louder than any declaration of war. Speculation spread. Council subcommittees convened to decipher intent. Was it a signal of peace? A warning? A challenge? None could agree. That was the point. Earth had left interpretation to the observer. Some saw defiance. Others saw caution. A few saw opportunity. But the common denominator was unease. What troubled them wasn't just the message. It was the restraint. Earth had the tactical window to strike back, to cripple the Council while its infrastructure was in disarray. No retaliation came. No expansion. No exploitation. Earth held its position and simply watched. This restraint rewrote assumptions. A civilization advanced enough to neutralize the most formidable fleet in galactic history, yet declined to leverage that victory, was operating from a logic no one could map. Every known power sought advantage. Earth displayed control instead. Quietly, new models emerged among Council strategists. Earth wasn't acting out of fear, or lack of capacity. It was following an internal doctrine the galaxy hadn't yet understood. One not built on conquest or compliance, but on survival without permission. A framework that made no sense to species raised on hierarchy, submission, and expansion. Outside the Council, smaller civilizations began reaching out, not formally, but through encoded pulses and fragments. Some seeking protection, others seeking answers. They received no response. Earth engaged no alliances, offered no technology, and accepted no gifts. Yet its influence grew. Not through diplomacy or warfare, but through uncertainty. Among human leadership, no announcement was made. Their population remained largely unaware of the exact scale of what had occurred. Earth continued its slow development, expanding research, hardening infrastructure, monitoring the stars. Defense systems remained active. No celebrations were broadcast. Victory was not treated as triumph. It was treated as confirmation. Not that they were stronger. That they were enough. The Council restructured its threat matrix. Earth was placed in a category with no prior designation. Not hostile. Not allied. A new term was coined, sovereign anomaly. A classification reserved for entities whose behavior and capabilities exceeded predictive thresholds. Internal communications admitted a quiet truth. They did not understand humanity. They had expected resistance. They hadn't expected refusal. They had prepared for battle. They hadn't prepared for nullification. Earth became a fixed point in future strategy, not because of territory or resources, but because of precedent. It had proven that refusal to participate in the galactic order could succeed under the right conditions. That alone made it dangerous. As decades passed, the story of the lost fleet became legend. Most spoke of it in whispers. Official records omitted key data. Conspiracies circulated. Only a few knew the truth. Fewer spoke it aloud. In the end, Earth didn't rewrite the rules. It reminded the galaxy that rules were inventions. Agreements made under assumptions that others would obey. Humanity didn't obey. It didn't rebel. It simply continued. On its own terms. And somewhere beyond the edges of map space, new probes launched. Not to conquer. Not to colonize. But to see who else might be watching. Not every message was meant to be answered. Some were meant to be understood. We are still here. And we were never asking for permission.